Dave, I think we should talk about just real quick is some of the appeal in a character. Okay, so there's always a subtle difference in terms of what any animator, like I was talking earlier, finds appealing. Here's something that I found this kind of arc in his head appealing. Let me zero out this mover down here at the bottom. So that's actually where his jaw is supposed to be. Zero out his top skull mover as well. And so you have this very straight up and straight down line, which completely ruins the flow and line of action of the face there. So something as subtle as that makes all the difference. So if you were to like take his head and try to get that back over and get that line of action like that, it's not nearly as appealing as going ahead and just arcing those two things over. You kind of get this like shy feeling. His face is open that way. You get this opening. The eyes are open this way, and his chin opens that way now. So this whole nice line of action. And what also I find really appealing about the character when you do this is it then connects and reflows back into the neck. So the chin doesn't feel like a bobblehead when it's zeroed out like this. Now we have a huge disconnect that this neck is coming way out of here and the chin's going this way. So it's all those really subtle stuff that this rig really can emulate and get, the production quality. And those are the tips and tricks that I learned working on Horton. And so you can see here his chin's bent that way, right? But all of a sudden he looks over this direction and you don't really see it, but you definitely feel it in terms of now it's flipped this way. So if I were to zero this out and zero these out, now it's straight up and down, and we're losing that appeal of having this nice arced thing here. And even rotating it down in X gives this elongated feeling to them, which is really nice to be able to do. So there, putting it back. Let's even talk about the arms. Special paying attention to some of the deformations here. So I can zero out these small little controls, and now we have a really straight broken arm, which is how it comes in by default. But I didn't like that, so I put a little bit of bow into it. So there's all these super subtle controls here. Let's see if I can translate one around just to show you. So it's these kind of things. So I'm just slightly taking it and bowing it out and doing that stuff with the legs. I probably could even gone in and added just a little slight bow here with the legs here. That probably would have been a little bit cleaner in terms of getting an arc down through here and on the other side as well. But there's all those kind of things. If you have enough time, you can really sell this as a beautiful drawing almost. I'm trying to see if there's anything else really, really appealing. I mean, really big facial expressions and that kind of stuff. I think the two things that are the biggest things are this lower skull mover, I always refer to as a muzzle mover, and then this top skull mover that can open up the eyes and appeal and that kind of stuff. Just super, super cool. And being able to squash and stretch the eyes and scale them around and scale the head and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really fun to do. Here again, using these controls to slightly bow the arms and that kind of stuff to really make the pose sing and go all the way through the body, like one clean line of action all the way through down here.
Let's just talk about some of the appeal, because there's 5 or 10 poses in here I just think are so appealing and so great. And the funny thing is about appealing pose is that as soon as you get off the camera, it's not an appealing pose anymore.
Yeah.
Not appealing. You get just the right angle, and all of a sudden it's just gorgeous.
That's one thing that I feel like students get too concerned with is what it looks like from all different angles. And man, I really don't care what it looks like from any other angle. I zoom in on that one view and I just deal with it just as is and try to make it appealing like a drawing. Who cares what the drawing looks like on the backside of the piece of paper, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. It's a 2D image. Treat it like a 2D. Okay, so this is your first pose, appealing. I love this, and for the reasons we just discussed. He's really realized like a 2D drawing in this frame.
Yeah, you almost forget how much stuff you add in, but you spend the time on those first primary storytelling frames. Someone was asking, when do you put in the bow and the bend in the rig? I put it in right away because you want to set up those storytelling poses to look as good as possible right away. I use a tool called the Tween Machine, which will dial in a percentage between one pose to another. And I want to make sure all those subtleties like the arm deformations, the muzzle mover, all those attributes are all heading in one way, and there's not stray keys or all of a sudden one key turns on halfway in between a pose. I want to make sure that all those movers are actually moving. So I'll grab the entire rig and hit, say, 50%. And maybe it looks like crap, but it at least starts building up the pose and making sure that those curves are moving to another pose, if that makes sense. It's just more like smart blocking. So definitely put those things in right away on those storytelling poses and make sure those poses are as clean as possible. I put in every little eye dart, every little mouth curl, every little flex in the muscles, and making sure those poses are really, really solid.
I just love this pose. I think it's so appealing. This one, and
I bet if you were to spin around that view, I bet it's pretty janked. In terms, his head is completely sunken. The shoulders are translated to hell. It's like, but from that one view, it looks fine. His head is completely buried in correctly, and just looks fine. But I needed to push it really far to be able to get that idea that he's sunken in. You know.
all right, let's look at how high the shoulders are cranked up there. So yeah, from there to there. What did you do to the head? You just cranked it all over the place. No, it looks awesome.
Yeah, so it's translated and shoulders are translated and everything's pushed and mashed into that pose. And I think even I used probably some of ththose purple deformer removers on the chest on a lot of poses to like overly push the arcs and that kind of stuff.
One of the things I found interesting is this sort of breaks my cardinal rule of when you animate, you don't want to start from position A to position B and then repeat it. Now, this is, geniusly done and it looks fantastic. But there's a few things, including this in this shot, where I feel like if a beginner were to try it, you'd run the risk of getting into trouble and having it be problematic. One of them is smear frames. I feel like if people learn smear frames too early and they try to stick them in there before they know about arcs and spacing, it's kind of dangerous. Repeated cycles like this. This doesn't feel wrong at all. It feels like it has great texture and it's appealing and it works. It's comedic, it has a certain amount of repetition. But Jeff, you were pointing out that it's not actually a cycle and that you broke it up in ways that make it work.
Yeah, definitely. When it was an exhale, I would copy over a little bit of the pose, but I would rebuild it, like some of the faces. The intention was that it felt like a cycle going back and forth, so it was a bit cartoony, like there was a wavering to it. But doing enough overlap and offsetting things just by a frame or two, you'll see the mouth continues to open up wider even as he's about to exhale. So there's a couple frames of overlap, and all that little like small subtle texture is going to break it up just enough that it's not going to feel like an A B A B A B A B pose going back and forth. And that's the part that just comes into polish. Even adding the little bit of flex in the fingers as he's breathing, just got to get every little small part right and do it just enough to the point where you're not going to notice it anymore.
So what about this pose? This pose is hilarious. He's so off model, but it looks so right. He looks like he's all of a sudden got a jaw, but you totally read what's going on here.
It harkens right back to the same, like that Horton pose where you want to put a hat down and really get him like mean looking. So to get that, you need that Popeye type lower jaw, really bend everything down. So I wanted that feeling of everything being squished that way. And it definitely breaks the appeal of the character a little bit, because we were talking about he's so much more appealing when everything's kind of smoothing back into the neck. But to get that attitude really fast and really quick, I broke that rule just to make him feel really angry and just pushing it really fast. And yeah, obviously from any other angle, it just looks like garbage.
But it totally works. He looks older too. I'm really fascinated by what makes cartoon characters look a little bit older or younger. So look at how much Jeff cranked this around. Let's see. The jaw went from there to there. So he is totally jacked up, but in a gorgeous way.